Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out today. It is nice. We might get some cool weather today, so we're excited for that. Today, for Stronger Business, Stronger You, we are going to be talking about brain boosters. So, when we're talking through this, we're going to talk about mindfulness, mental health, and then kind of get into, some ways that we can really take care of our brains. If the noise gets a little too much, I'm so sorry. There are some people right outside my window doing some work, and hopefully you'll be able to hear me just fine. Um, I am Adriana Scurry. I'm the health promotion coordinator here at the Gwinnett-Newton-Rockdale County Health Departments, and MaryBeth is also here, the Family and Consumer Science Agent at UGA Extension in Rockdale County. So MaryBeth, do you have anything to say before we get started?
Yeah, so I just wanted to add, if you've been with us before, you probably noticed that we changed the color scheme a little bit this month, and we realized that we started this program before Living Well Rockdale, which is our new healthy living initiative in the community, before we had really gotten it off the ground. And so we consider that this is one of the arms of that, working with employees and employers for all kinds of healthy living topics. So you can see we have our Living Well Rockdale logo in here as well. We're going to start using those blues and greens to start helping the community understand that it's all one big umbrella of trying to make healthy living easy and doable and maybe even enjoyable for everyone. So thank you all for being here. We know time is valuable, especially in the middle of the day.
Yes, thank you so much. And I love the colors, MaryBeth, the blues and the greens. They chill us all out for the middle of the day.
And I also wanted to add, we are not mental health experts, but we are experts at finding resources. So we're going to be leaning heavily on things that other agencies like Mental Health America and Positive Psychology have created, and we'll be sharing those resources with you versus us trying to swim outside of our depths.
Yes, always great to be health educators, but we will always send you to the resources that you need. So when we get started, when we're talking about mental health, we're really talking about something that is absolutely positively essential for everyone's overall health and well-being. It surrounds your emotional health, your psychological health, and then your social well-being. When, it might be something that it feels sort of abstract when we think about mental health, but when we're really looking at it, we notice when we are feeling a positive mental health or a negative mental health. We see how it impacts our physical health. If we're tired, maybe we might get a cold easier. We, feel a little bit more run down. If we're stressed, we might take that out on our partner or our kids or our friends. It really affects our physical health, our relationships, our work performance. If you are currently brain fogging it up right now, like everybody else, and then also almost every other aspect of your life, mental health will it'll bleed. And when we're looking at mental health, that's why we really want to pay attention to it, so we can have something that, have positive experiences in our life. So I'm going to play this little video. Uh-oh. Let me make sure that you can hear my audio before I do that. Can you guys hear everything? All right. Quick stop, y'all. My fun fact, my screen share button and all of that is like right underneath my webcam, so I can't see any of it. I am guessing around, so hold on really fast. Share computer sound. We're coming right back. Better?
Our brains control how we act in the world. But did you know the world around us also affects our brains? Our genes, environment, and social interactions all work together to shape the way our brains develop. Sometimes these factors combine in ways that create unhealthy thoughts or feelings. Over time, these unhealthy thoughts and feelings become so unmanageable that we need outside support to get better. 50% of people will develop at least one mental health condition during their lifetime, and half of those people will develop a mental health condition by age 14. Unfortunately, it takes about 10 years for people to get the treatment they need. We don't wait to treat health problems like heart disease or cancer until stage 4. We shouldn't wait to take care of our mental health. The right early treatment can change lives, reducing school dropout rates, hospitalization, incarceration, and unemployment. Imagine what the world would look like if we all got the help we needed when we first started showing the early warning signs. Start the conversation before stage 4. Visit mentalhealthamerica.net to get informed, take an online screening, and better understand your own mental health.
All right. So when we look at that video, we see that, things are sometimes internal, right? So we see that some things that, affect our mental health, just, the way that we are feeling and responding to something. Sometimes it's genetic, sometimes it's external things, sometimes it's what we put in our bodies, sometimes it's the stressors of, an outside like force, like our job or our family, something going on, or the entire year. So we can really see how all of those things can affect our mental health, right? It doesn't mean that, anything is, particularly wrong with anyone, but it's something that we have to pay attention to and that we want to treat just like we treat, oh, if I have a cold, I'm going to go to the urgent care. Or, if I see like a weird mole on my back, I'm going to go to the dermatologist, right? So, in that same regard, we want to treat our mental health before it, becomes something too big. So I really like the idea of the before stage 4. Thank you so much for that video, MaryBeth. The Mental Health Associates of America, they do a really wonderful job. So when we're looking at it, the video just talked about, about 1 in 5 adults experience mental illness during their lifetime. Most commonly, we see anxiety, right? So that's going to be feelings of, feelings of anxiousness, feelings of concern, lots of worry. And sometimes it's caused by something external, and sometimes it could be for no reason at all. Sometimes, if you just, wake up and you're like, I'm a little bit stressed today, sometimes that can be a feeling of anxiety. But, if that continues on, it might be something that we want to look at. And that's also, right after anxiety is followed by depression. So, they talk about that as, having, more than 50% of your days, feeling, down or hopeless in, 2 weeks. So we want to try to make sure that we're noticing those things about ourselves. And we've got some great tools to look at that. And with adults, 1 in 6 United States youth experience from, 6 to 17 experience a mental health disorder. So sometimes this starts, a lot of times actually, it starts younger. And if we don't pay attention to it, it can grow into something as we get older. Especially, that's why, not only looking at your kids, right? Because we really want to pay attention to our kids, but even in ourselves, we want to look at these things so that way they don't grow. So we can offer kind of like, how when we're flying, in the before times, and, they would tell us that we have to put our gas mask on ourselves before we can put our gas mask on somebody else. You might not notice something that's happening in a family member or a child, without paying attention to that kind of thing in yourself. So about 46% of people will meet criteria for a diagnosis at some point in their life. So a diagnosis could be, anything from anxiety, depression to something more serious. However, any diagnosis, can really help on that road to treatment. And then everybody, every single person, me sitting here, you sitting over there, the people who are outside working on my window, everyone faces challenges in their life that can impact their mental health. And I think we all found that out this year. But on top of that, it can be anything small to, something larger. So we really do want to pay attention to what that looks like. MaryBeth is going to talk to us about some Mental Health of America tools. And so we've got some really cool stuff for you.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out how different that statistic of the 46%, nearly half at some point in your life might have something, whereas at any given time, it's a lot less than that. And so I like to think of things like maybe postpartum depression, or maybe you had clinical depression or anxiety following, an event like losing a parent or a spouse or something, but it's not, diagnoses aren't always a one and done, like I will always suffer from this, I will always need the same level of care. And so we talk about it because it's important for a certain level to get a lot of care, but all of us need to talk about how we deal with the stresses of everyday life too. So hopefully that wasn't too confusing.
No.
Okay, so we wanted to focus on this because if you are not aware, May is actually Mental Health Month in America. It's kind of a national observance. And so they created a toolkit at mentalhealthamerica.net about kind of 6 different areas where we see room for improvement. And so I think that might be on the next slide about, yes. So adapting after trauma and stress, dealing with anger and frustration, getting out of thinking traps, processing big changes, taking time for yourself, radical acceptance. And then we are going to talk a little bit about mindfulness, but that wasn't in their specific toolkit. And so I have a handout that I've put in a folder that I will send to you all, the link to it after this, because I thought they were really helpful. So the first one is about adapting after trauma and stress. And so a lot of people, it's a word that I'm hearing a lot more in my circles of trauma or traumatic events and things like that. But people think of it as like you had to experience a school shooting or be in a dramatic car crash or like suffer serious abuse as a child or something like that to have trauma in your life. And that's not the only definition that there is. So I'm still seeing the list. So can we go to the trauma slide? I don't know if my computer's just behind. I'll pretend that I can see it. I'll look at my keys then. For whatever reason, my computer's not catching up. But now I see it. Okay, so we all face trauma and adversity and stress throughout our life. So a way to think about trauma is any experience that overwhelms your thoughts, emotions, or body. So you just like you have this feeling of not being able to handle what's going on. And so I want us to think a little bit more about the little t trauma, like maybe losing your job. It's things that could be more common in life, or frequent arguing at home, or your work environment is really stressful. Like it's just a constant heightening of things that overwhelm you. And so we are no strangers to stress. Our very first Stronger Business, Stronger You was all about stress management. And so we will be sure to email you that link if you want to go back to that one. We actually talked about it in July of last year, and we did record that session. So we wanted to point that out. And so on the next slide, it talks about they have 6 or 7 different ideas about trauma. And so there's a whole tool of screening quizzes you can take on the website that we're going to send. And they said that past trauma was the 2nd most reported cause for having mental distress after loneliness in 2020. So you can see how COVID kind of probably hit both of those buttons. A lot of people are feeling really lonely, and a lot of people are also feeling a lot of trauma from what was going on in the news, the worry of what's going to happen next. Maybe you lost some income, or you were worried about people in your family getting sick, or you got sick. And so some ways that you can deal with healing and coping are processing your thoughts. It's really easy to go into survival mode and not really being able to focus on a lot of different things. So when you feel ready, taking time to think about how you've been affected and really be proud of yourself for the healthy things that you did to push through, or just being grateful that you made it through to the other side. That's a key part in healing. Another is connecting with people. People feel all of these things are exacerbated when you feel alone or catastrophically unique, or if no one is willing to listen to you. And so connecting with people with similar experiences, or connecting with people who can make you feel like you're not alone, is very important. We want to avoid comparing our experiences to others, and doing that kind of, well, someone else has it worse, so these feelings aren't valid. My trauma is not as bad as their trauma. But that doesn't really help you at all. And it doesn't help the person who has more trauma than you either. Something that you can do, and that we're learning, is that traumatic events really, there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score and things like that, that these mental things do not just stay in our minds. They affect our bodies very much. And so thinking about taking care of our body, this is something you're going to see over and over because they are connected. So trying to eat well when you can, staying hydrated, getting some movement, getting some good sleep, and that can help you feel like you deserve good things in your life by taking care of your body, and that can leak into your mind. You really want to know, just be aware of things will take time, and don't put a lot of expectations on yourself about how quickly you should heal or how you should feel. It's all about one step at a time or one day at a time, whatever helps you keep things in really bite-sized chunks, and knowing that recovering from big events or stressful seasons is not going to be linear. You're going to take one step forward, one step back, or two steps back, but it doesn't mean you're failing. It's just part of the process. It's important to give yourself grace. You're not going to react to everything purposely. If you've been perfectly, if you've been hurt, you probably are going to hurt some people along the way, even when you're trying to heal. And so you can handle those things as they come, go back and apologize or make amends as you need to, but realize that no one's perfect. And you're not as bad as your worst day. And never feeling ashamed to ask for help, whether it's from friends or family members or a professional or a faith leader or something like that. You are not expected to be able to handle this life alone. The human experience is full of twists and turns. And so you deserve someone to talk to, and you can learn over time what type of people you can trust, what type of people you need to go to for different situations. So we'll send you some more information about that for sure. The next one is dealing with anger and frustration. And I think that's something that certain people feel like they're allowed to feel anger and frustration, certain cross sections of the population. And then if you're not in that group, you have to stuff it down and pretend it's not happening. And that is just a recipe for disaster. It's going to explode at some point. And so the first thing is really thinking about how anger and frustration are complicated emotions. They are usually stemming from other places like disappointment or fear or stress. So that's probably something you probably felt all of those things across over the last 12 months or over your life at some point. And that can bubble up in anger and frustration. And so you can see if anyone has been dealing with parenting and trying to go to work and things like that, that's a lot. And so figuring out ways to decrease your overall tension can prevent you from being on edge, so that you're not just going to explode if anything doesn't go right, because the chances of everything lining up perfectly are next to none. And so you want to do what you can to try not to avoid spiraling out of control on a regular basis. So some things you can do for coping are pausing before reacting, like the whole taking a few breaths or counting to 10 before you have that hard conversation, or respond to a text or a call or one of your children asking for you. There's a statistic on my sheet that says 71% of people reported feeling easily annoyed or irritable at least half of the time or nearly every day in 2020. So I can attest to that. I think that definitely was true. We just didn't have a lot that was filling us back up. And so we were depleted and coming from a place of lack. Something else you can do is changing your surroundings. I think anger can make you feel really like tunnel visioned and trapped, whether you're mad at someone in the same room or just angry at the world. Physically relocating can help you kind of break that spell a little bit. And sometimes just getting out in nature, or at least looking out at a tree or something like that, can really disrupt the track your mind is on, as surprising as that is. Sometimes these little things can kickstart what we want in the moment, even if it's not going to kickstart everything. It's important to get your feelings out in some way. We can all probably picture some ways that are terrible and some that are not so terrible. So maybe a journal, or going somewhere where you can scream by yourself is preferable to laundry listing all the issues you have with the loved ones or not so loved ones in your life. But opening up to a trusted friend or writing it down in a journal or something like that, or pretending you're talking to the person in an empty room, having a chair or something, so you can have that cathartic moment. And then after you get that out, sometimes you can breathe a little bit better and think about what you actually do need to say to that person, because sometimes what you want to say and what you need to say are two very, very different things depending on how you're feeling at the moment. It's important to release built up energy, because it's going to create more tension in your body to be holding anger and frustration all the time. So something like exercising, running, weightlifting, or maybe even just taking a hot shower can kind of start to release and unclench some of those things. And so thinking about what that might be for you. Sometimes I remember sometimes in college when I was feeling really angry that I felt like I just needed to do something hard, something that was difficult and challenging that I could be proud of myself with my body. And for me, that was certain like exercise videos, but there's probably something else it could be for you. Getting organized is something that can help. If you feel chaotic, like my desk is currently covered in stuff, that makes it so if anyone has something else to tell me, I'm going to feel already overwhelmed just by what's around me. So if I can eliminate physical stressors and get a little bit more organized, that's going to help. Another one is managing your expectations. A lot of times we get angry and frustrated because we assume people are going to do certain things, situations are going to go a certain way, and sometimes we make those expectations with very rose-colored glasses or very high standards that are not going to be met. So taking some time to try to reevaluate and think about, can I shift these expectations a little? And then you'll see, once again, asking for help. This one, the thinking traps, was actually my favorite one in the toolkit that I found. There are a lot of different kind of negative cycles that we can get into in our head. And so there's definitions on there, but things like all or nothing thinking is really easy when you're upset. Jumping to conclusions, only focusing on the negative details of a situation is what they mean by filtering, taking everything personally, blaming yourself for things that weren't in your control, or taking things personally when it wasn't connected to you at all. Those are all things that can really make it hard for us to be able to handle things and can really make our mental health suffer. So there's a few different ways that we can think about getting out of these negative thought traps. And these are kind of, this might sound a little bit hokey, but these are things that really do help over time. We really have to like interrupt that script because we're like on a hamster wheel and we're not getting anywhere, and it's making us more and more upset. And so reframing your thoughts, especially if they're beating yourself up, something like you might be saying to yourself, I can't do anything right, or I'm so stupid, or I'm so something. And then think about how different that is compared to saying, yeah, I messed up. That was not great, but nobody's perfect. And I did what I could to rectify the situation, or something like that. Trying to be realistic and not putting yourself down to an extreme. Another one you can do is like prove yourself wrong. If you're telling yourself that nobody cares about you, maybe you want to try to call a friend, or maybe you're telling yourself that I'm just not smart. Like I can't do these things. My brain isn't like so-and-so's brain. But maybe the key is to try to learn something new, watch some TED Talks or something, and prove like I can get better at a certain skill. Because a lot of times we make these huge generalizations about ourselves, and they're not true, and it's really unhelpful. This one I think is the hardest, countering negative thoughts with positive ones. Like if you're looking at the mirror and you're saying negative things about your body to yourself in your head, literally saying out loud like things that you like, or even just don't hate about yourself, whether it's your physical characteristics or your mental or personality. You have to interrupt that script, and it's hard at first, but it gets easier and easier to the point where you can drown out those thoughts and stop them before they happen a lot of different times. Another thing is to remember that thoughts aren't facts. They are really valid, but they are valid. Our feelings are valid, our experiences are valid, but we can be our own worst enemy. And we create the scripts that we create in our heads, the stories we tell ourselves about what's happened in the past and what's going to happen in the future are extremely powerful. And so if they are not rooted in a place of reality, we have to like feel them and then move them aside and replace them with what's real. And so we'll see that in the radical acceptance slide in a few minutes. But another example for positive self-talk would be, why didn't Jenna say hi to me at work? What did I do wrong? She must hate me or something. I must have slighted her. But then if you think about it, like Jenna is so busy at work, she must have a lot on her mind. That's really good, because sometimes we personalize things that aren't even about us. And so practicing positive self-talk, or another way to think about it is assuming positive intent, that even if someone slighted you, telling yourself a different story of a perceived slight, I mean, could have been an oversight on their part. They're not trying to prove anything to you. They're not trying to make you pay for anything. If you can think in a more neutral or positive way about why something happened that you didn't like, that can be really helpful compared to just assuming the worst, assuming it's your fault or they were out to get you in some way.
Yeah. MaryBeth, before you go on, I think it's really important to, we're talking about a lot of positivity here, and Rome wasn't built in a day. right? It's going to take a really long time. Some of these things, especially as, right now, at least, everyone in this, in this Zoom is a woman. And, sometimes there are things that we have heard, our whole lives. We've heard our mothers say to themselves, and we say out loud, the same sort of things, right? About our body, about, the way that people talk to us, and it's all about taking our time with this. It's all we've been around on this earth for some time now. So it's going to take a while to kind of get back and kind of undo some of that stuff too. So, even if practicing positive self-talk is a lot today, maybe practicing neutral self-talk is all we can do too. Maybe, body positivity is too much. Maybe body neutrality is enough right now. So taking a step back and also not beating yourself up for not being positive. That just, adds into it. So making sure we're taking enough time, and realizing it's going to take a second. It's okay.
Yeah. And thinking about, if you wouldn't say that, what you're saying to yourself, to your child or your best friend or your spouse or your mother, like, if you shouldn't be saying it to yourself, but a lot of times we say things that if they were written down or said out loud, people would be shocked because it's not how anyone else sees us.
It's true. MaryBeth and I think for the most part, we say, stop talking to my friend like that. And it's always really helpful to reframe it. Like, okay, I wouldn't say that to my friend. So I'm going to say something nice. I can take a minute. So even helping somebody else on that journey, helps yourself on that journey too.
Mm-hmm. The next one is processing big changes. And sometimes we think that we can control things, that we just need the right routines. And we just have to really get to a place of understanding that the one constant in life is change. We definitely learned that in 2020 when we were like, we're going to do this in March and this in April and this in the summer. And none of that stuff happened. Even the stuff in the fall barely happened. And so remembering that changes can be good or bad, and they can be planned or unexpected, but like things like having a baby or getting a new job or moving, or even having your kids go to college or your parents move close to you, like anything that's disrupting the people you think about, the activities you're doing day to day, is going to take some time to adjust, and you're going to need to process it, or it's going to catch up to you later. And it's okay if we're dealing with the later, that's fine too. But you can see there's like 6 or 7 tactics for all of these. So one thing to do is focus on what you can control. A lot of things, when there's changes happening, you can't control a lot, but a lot of people, you might have heard, like, I can change my reactions. I can change how I respond to things. I can change how I start my day. I can have control over what I wear, what I eat first thing, if I'm going to spend some time, if I'm going to get up early enough to like sit and enjoy my tea or my coffee, or if I'm going to run from thing to thing, like what can I do at the beginning of the day before everything else creeps in? Another thing is to write out your feelings. And so a lot of times we just feel like a jumbled mess. We know things are very complicated in our head and it's hard to get it out. And so you might be surprised, if you haven't journaled in a while, how easily the words might flow, especially when no one should be reading them other than you or whatever. And if it's scary to you, just set a timer and see what you can do with 5 minutes and jot things down. It doesn't have to be sentences if you don't want it to be. It can just be, I feel this, or a brain dump of any kind. But there's proven data that shows that people who journal about significant events reported more satisfaction with their lives and better mental health over those that never did. So it's an interesting thing that such a small thing can have such a marked impact when you blow it up to a population level. You definitely want to keep up your self-care. For some people, it's as simple as like brushing your teeth and taking your shower. Like, it doesn't have to be spa days and expensive things and whole days off, but thinking about 10 and 15-minute chunks where you get to think about what makes you feel like a person, what makes you feel worthwhile. Another thing is finding support for changes. You probably have friends and family who care about you, but sometimes it's a very unique situation, and maybe an online support group could really help you figure out this new chapter in life that maybe no one in your immediate circle is dealing with right now. You can definitely get advice from people who have done it before or just are generally wise. or a therapist or something like that, but sometimes there's nothing like having similar experiences to share with people. You want to do what you can to tune into the good, reframing challenges as opportunities and things like that. But there is a lot of research out there about the practice of gratitude and how that really helps things. But I will say it is a muscle that needs to be worked. I can remember particularly stressful and negative times in my life where someone asked me, can you just name like one good thing? And it had been so long since I had done it that I really struggled. And it's embarrassing and crazy to think about now, but it's absolutely something that practice helps make perfect. And just taking time to think about, well, this was bad, but this wasn't so bad. And thinking about what is good. Because a lot of times we blow up the bad and think everything's bad, or every day is bad. And so I know that sometimes some diagnoses really are by like marking days on a calendar and how often. And if you mark days on a calendar, whether or not you're trying to see if you have a serious problem or not, sometimes it'll help you reevaluate. It's really only once a week, not 3 to 4 times a week that I feel this way. And getting that real data out there can be helpful. Making plans is great. So if you don't know what the future holds, you can at least plan your day or your week or like an activity on the week. And then thinking of your strength, what got you to this point. Things like saying out loud to yourself that you're strong and you're capable and you're growing and you're moving forward. The next one is taking time for yourself. And this is incredibly important for everyone. And we've learned that it can fit into a full life and doesn't make you a selfish person. And in a lot of times, being very smart and prioritizing your self-care and taking time for yourself can make you better at the things that you're trying to do for and with other people. And so we see it a lot get pushed to the side in the active parenting stage, in students, depending on your work environment as an employer or an employer, as a caretaker, or just someone who's dealing with a lot of stress and you're generally overwhelmed. A lot of times people will work through lunch. They won't do anything that makes them feel like themselves again. They never recharge. And so I really want to affirm you to think about how filling your tank will make it easier to complete and even excel in those responsibilities and caregiving roles. You will be a better caretaker or parent or whatever if you're coming from a place of abundance and positivity as much as you can versus like, I have nothing else to give and now you want more from me. So like we mentioned about brushing your teeth and taking a shower, sometimes it's like keeping up with your doctor's appointments. We see a lot of people who don't go to their PCP or don't go to the dentist because they just don't have time. And we have to make time for things like that, or it can become a lot bigger in the future. And so a lot of people don't even spend 15 minutes on themselves. So we would want to challenge you to try to take 5 or 10 minutes a day more than you are now and just work on it, because it's going to take time if you're not doing anything like that. Sorry, I forgot about how I have to like look at the other slides. So I'll try to move a little faster through some of these, but we've talked about focusing on the basics, finding what makes you feel like you. Like for me, it's spending some time in the kitchen, not every day, but at least once a day, twice a week, like cooking for fun, spending time outside, talking to my parents or my sister, things like that. If I've gone 3 weeks without doing those things, it catches up to me. So thinking about what makes you feel like something that kind of sounds fun on most days. If you could just like steal a day from the world, what's an activity you would include there? That's something that'll get easier if you can't think of anything right now. We're going to talk about mindfulness later, but we really want to encourage you to focus on those small goals, like 5 or 10 minutes if you're not doing anything right now. And then you may have read the book Boundaries in the past. It's a really good thing that a lot of people should think about. But when people encroach on your boundaries and you can't even recognize what's happening, sometimes you need like some hard but true conversations about how you spend your time or your emotions or your relationships or your things, and deciding what you will and won't accept in the future and how to ask for what you want or get what you want or get yourself out of situations that don't do you any favors. And once again, remember that you're not alone. This is hard for nearly everybody. And what works now won't work in 6 months or a year or 5 years. It's something that we're always learning more about ourselves and what will help. The next one is radical acceptance. And so we all end up in situations we can't change. They're beyond our control. And so if we can just kind of accept things the best we can, the way they are, that can really reduce those negative feelings of guilt, shame, anxiety. But we just want to be sure to let you know that it doesn't mean that you approve of the situation. It doesn't mean that you're giving up. And it doesn't mean that it's not painful or hard. It's just kind of not adding insult to injury in your own brain by fighting so hard against the way that things are. So if you're constantly thinking about how you wish things were different, then you're probably fighting reality. And if you can kind of let up a little bit, that'll help you out. Thinking about how you can't change the past, trying to embrace your feelings, feel them, pretend. Sometimes you just got to fake it till you make it. What would the next step be? What would I get up and do today if I had accepted this situation? Relaxing your body. Once again, stressful situations put tension in your body. Another one is using coping statements and saying these in your head or having someone tell them to you. Maybe you just need to have a friend who's like, when I call you and I say these things, this is what I need you to say. It is what it is. I can only control my own reactions and my own actions, things like that. And then just knowing it will take practice. So those are the things in the toolkit, and we have both worksheets and handouts if you want to dive a little deeper on your own time in any of those. And I think Adriana is going to do the next slide, but I wanted to give you a little primer that we are very blessed this summer to have a PhD student from UGA serving as an intern with us. She's done a lot of work with youth and education in different contexts. So Chastity Tompkins is going to talk a little bit about youth and teens in the next few slides.
Okay, yeah. So when we're talking about mindfulness, we're really just talking about the practice of paying attention to yourself. You know, your thoughts, your surroundings, and really trying to take a minute to be present in what you are doing. Sometimes it feels like it has to be some long drawn out thing, and I need to meditate for, an hour. I'm not doing it right, or I have to sit cross-legged and, and try to figure that whole thing out. But it can be as long or short as you want, right? You can take 2 minutes of your day if that's what you have. Or it can be as small as you're in the middle of something and you're starting to feel your shoulders creeping up to your ears, and you just take a minute and you just go, just at your desk, right? Just taking a second, bringing it back to your body. It can be seated, it can be standing, it can be while you're walking, outside, just something that sparks the joy of just being, We have had a couple of previous sessions, one, surrounding more mindfulness and meditation, and where we talked about some mindful eating and things like that. We are going to send you that again, and we're also going to send you a couple links, when it comes to just little short mindfulness activities that you can do for yourself, right? But just today, I want everybody to take a second. I want everyone to sit up, wiggle your shoulders out for me. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Exhale. Feel your body kind of relax. Feel your shoulders relax. Get them far away from your little ears. Roll from one side and then to the next. Shake them out a little bit. Just kind of take that minute for yourself. And so the next time that you feel super stressed at your desk, just think about me just sitting here going, just take a breath. Just hear that in your brain. And eventually your brain will do it on its own. But just taking that second. So we're super excited to have Chastity here. She does wonderful, wonderful work. So I will let her go right ahead.
As we know, adults aren't the only ones dealing with stress and anxiety, but teaching youth to practice these mindfulness strategies can be a pretty difficult transition, especially for teenagers. We often mix up pretty serious anxiety or depression disorders in kids and teenagers by brushing it off as they're changing emotions or their hormones. And mindfulness can really help understand these differences if you aren't seeking professional guidance. Again, big T and little t trauma happens with our youth. and we may not understand it as adults. And we often think that we know what's best for them, and that's really not always true. And research confirms that for children, mindfulness can mitigate the effects of bullying, enhance focus in children with ADHD, reduce attention problems, improve mental health and well-being. It can improve social skills, and it really gives youth a chance to be just aware of what's happening in their environment too, so they understand cause and effect a lot. And youth feed off our emotions. And so if we're upset, if we're stressed, if we're not handling things appropriately, all of that anger, all that tension is going to go straight to our kids, whether they're our kids or we're out in public or we're working with kids. And so it's important for adults and educators to provide age-appropriate mindfulness practices to children. And there are tons of resources available, especially on the Positive Psychology site. There's apps, there's handouts, there's digital, there's non-digital. My biggest recommendation is just let them go outside. As long as there's nothing they can get hurt with, the best mindfulness strategy is being outside. And if you'll go to the next one, yeah, so there's 7 tips to help children, and we want to use it for positive situations only. And I want to touch on this because especially right now with Pinterest and sensory-based learning, we have taken something like the glitter balls that kids can play with or other mindfulness strategies, and we've turned it into a punishment for kids. Instead of letting them understand their feelings, we're kind of turning around like, okay, you need to stop what you're doing and go over here and play. And not just saying, hey, how are you feeling? Let's use a glitter jug, like turn it upside down, and we can count to 10 while the glitter falls. And so it's definitely used as positive situations. And that goes for adults too. We don't want to take our feelings and always bring something negative or punish ourselves for feeling the way we do. So we don't want kids to be punished for feeling the way they do too. If we practice it with ourselves, our kids will feed off of that and they learn off of us. So if we journal every day, there's a good chance that they're going to journal every day. Create a daily routine for children. Even if that's just 5 to 15 minutes in the morning or afternoon where those kids have a set timer, they can sit down and have their mindfulness moment. It becomes embedded. I see a lot of my friends right now doing it right before bedtime. So the kids get 5 to 10 minutes right before they go to bed, and it's their deep breath before they lay down. And it lets them go to bed not feeling so full of this energy and this anger and this stress that they have. And let children be involved in the decision-making process is pretty important too. Let them decide how they want to be mindful. And there's some pretty cool handouts on positive psychology that really show what kids are good at and what other moms are doing or other parents are doing to help calm their kids down.
Thank you so much for that. I didn't tell Chastity about this slide, so I won't make her talk about it. But I found a couple other toolkits that Mental Health America made as well. So one of them is called Back to School, and that's for parents of school-aged kids. And then there's one that's Life on Campus. And so it definitely wouldn't be bad for adults who have college students in their lives to look at, but it's also kind of set up for them to look at things that they might be dealing with, like homesickness, what do I do after graduation, work-life balance, roommates, all kinds of things that we don't always think about because it was just a while ago for some of us, but it is really true and real to them. And so like Chastity was saying, even for older teens and young adults, like the worst thing we can do is brush off their concerns as like, you'll get over it. You won't even think about it when you're 30, 40, 50 like me. So these are some just great other resources we wanted to share. So we'll send the PDF of these slides so you can click on all these links automatically.
All right. So when we're talking about, improving our mental health, right, we're going to kind of talk about, 3 different kind of ways or 3 different kind of levels of our mental health, right? We're really going to focus on the first 2. But the first one is things that we can do ourselves, right? So 10 ways to improve our mental health are socializing. If we can't see each other face to face, if we do a phone call, or if we can't do a phone call, honestly, I wrote a letter for the first time in a very long time, very recently. Then I got a letter back and I think I cried a little bit. It was fine. It was really nice. It just feels nice, something different. Practicing that mindfulness or meditation exercising, moving our body joyfully, if it's walking, if it's turning on some Mariah Carey, and dancing, whatever that looks like for you. Trying, to have, one more healthy thing in your diet, having a piece of fruit, something that that'll kind of make you feel nourished inside. Setting boundaries, we've talked about enjoying music, laughter, so important, to just kind of bring up a little bit of joy into our lives. Practicing gratitude, trying to think positively, and then seeking professional help. So when we're looking at different things, oh, before I forget that, we're going to kind of look at mental health at work, and this will be sent to everyone. But 9 out of 10 employees report that their mental health stress, affects their workplace stress affects their mental health. And then about 3 out of 5 employees are not receiving adequate support. So what we are really looking at, and then 4 in 5, employees are emotionally drained from work, an early sign of burnout. So we really want to, pour into ourselves as well as pour into, if we have employees, try to pour that into them, give them these resources, share them with our coworkers, try to provide them with all these kinds of things. So, things that you can do for your own mental health, maybe do some self-care, some of that beauty routine things, take a walk, get some journal, meditate, and then do something for yourself, only if it's just like for 1 minute, right? So we talked about things that feel like an all or nothing, but it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It can be, if it's, if you've got 3.5 minutes in between, a Zoom meeting and a phone call that you have to do at work, take a minute and stand up and stretch, right? If you have 5 minutes before that your kid's TV show is going to end and they're going to come into the room for dinner, take that 5 minutes, maybe start a book that you want to read. Just do something just super tiny. Just start small, and you can kind of build it in a little bit more into your day.
I have one thing to add there. I've seen it on the internet a lot recently, is like, if your kids have screen time, you get the equivalent of screen time too. Like, don't use their screen time to clean up. Just a thought.
Yeah, definitely. You can use that time to watch an adult TV show, something nice. I like that. I do. Yeah. So then we're going to talk about kind of that next level of mental health care, right? Seeking professional help. Self-care, healthy coping mechanisms, positive self-talk are all amazing, amazing tools. But sometimes we need to talk to somebody. And, talking to your friends is amazing, and talking to your family is wonderful. And if you have that support, that is great. But sometimes you want just a different ear, or sometimes you want to talk about them, whatever that might look like. Sometimes it's helpful to talk to a professional to achieve some of our mental health goals, right? So it could be anything that we're thinking of, and we'll kind of talk about that in a second. But therapy, it doesn't have to be a bad word. It doesn't mean that something is wrong with you. It doesn't mean that, it's not like you're falling apart. But you want to think about it like, I take my car in for an oil change so it doesn't break down. Or I go to a physical so I can learn about something in my body before something happens. So it doesn't have to be all the way at the other end of the spectrum. So think about calling a mental health professional if you feel extremely overwhelmed, right? And you can't get it together, whatever together looks like. You've tried some self-care and you're just like, this is not it. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to go. Something else. You've had a lot of life changes, and you can just use an unbiased opinion, right? You can just use someone to talk to that isn't so close to you. If you are, maybe moving with your husband, or your kids, and, you try to talk about something and then they give you their input and you're like, well, I don't want your input. Like, I need to know about this for myself. Sometimes a therapist or, somebody can be helpful in that regard. You want to learn how to have a better relationship. You don't always have to do it when, a relationship is on the brink, right? But you can do it to, learn how to communicate better. Or on the flip side of that, to set your boundaries personally, right? So that's something that, if you're like, well, I'm working all the time and I feel really stressed, what can I do to set my own boundaries so I can kind of clean that up? you just need someone to talk to is also, a huge thing, right? Especially after this year, you just need someone to talk to. Maybe you're just feeling kind of down and you don't know why. And, when you talk to your friends, you're always like, I'm hanging in there. After a while, you might just want someone to talk to, if you feel like you don't want to talk to them about something, you don't want to, they'll be there to support you, but, if it's something different. Obviously, if you are diagnosed or you're concerned about an undiagnosed mental illness or you are in crisis, we definitely want you to seek professional help. But as you can see, this is such a huge spectrum, and you'll find that there are therapists that deal with crises, and there are therapists that deal with, I'm looking for a new job and I actually don't know where to start. There are therapists for all kinds of things, from looking for that new job to, I want to, better my relationship with, my mother, to I am in a crisis. It doesn't have to be anything. It can be big T trauma, little T trauma, no trauma at all, just talking. So, it's always, always important. And I think the big thing for us is that, especially now, we are really realizing the importance of mental health and mental health care for those who are in crisis, for those who do have illnesses. And we're starting to break down those building blocks and that stigma there. But it's still kind of scary for us to go and seek that care out too. But it's totally cool. They're usually you'll find a great therapist and it'll be just fine. So if you're not sure about, seeing a therapist, or if you feel like you might, have something like depression or, anxiety, and you kind of want to look into yourself and pay attention to you for a quick second, looking at the Mental Health America screening tools are really, really wonderful. They have little quizzes that are totally, confidential. They don't share that. But you can, just kind of learn about yourself, and, maybe you don't feel like you have something, or maybe you, are concerned about yourself, or you're concerned about a spouse or a loved one, making sure that everyone, can kind of just check in with themselves. Checking in with yourself is super important. So when you're looking for a therapist, you can check out, things like Psychology Today, and find a therapist in your area and your specialty. There are therapists that are, once again, from career to addiction to, family issues to, marriage counseling to, anxiety to stress to just general therapists that, can just talk to you about anything. You can always call your insurance company to see if there's somebody who's in network, or even your employee assistance program, to see if you can find someone that can also be free. Some employers or insurance companies right now are offering, free telemental health services, just because it's a tough year and a half. And so it provides that for people. Sometimes you'll find a therapist that you want to see that might not, take insurance, and that's totally fine. If you feel like you can't pay that, though, you can always ask them for something called a sliding scale. And you kind of tell them like, well, this is kind of what I make, and this is what I have after bills. And they'll kind of find something for you to kind of scale that back. Usually you can kind of expect to just pay your copay, though. You can also check with an online app or a helpline. There are phone numbers right now that are being, through the Georgia Mental Health Associations that are in the DB. Oh, there's so many P's in that, but I can't get it right. That have COVID emotional support line and things like that. As well as, paid online services like BetterHelp, where you can find somebody online. You don't have to leave. Sometimes you have friends, pastors, that already know somebody, that have those amazing, amazing recommendations. And, this is also super important. If you are looking for a therapist that aligns with you in your faith, they have those too, right? If you're looking for a therapist that aligns with you based on faith or based on, a worldview or something like that, or a previous life experience, you can also find somebody like that too. It's really important and sometimes really helpful to find a therapist that you really feel like you can talk to. And then you can also check Viewpoint Health if therapy, if you are uninsured or underinsured. So that's always a really, really important thing, but it's accessible, it's out there, and it's for everybody. Doesn't matter, if you have a little bitty problem or you just want to maybe be a better person and, learn about better ways to talk to people, or you have a big problem, anything in between.
Yeah, and I just wanted to share, I wanted to be a little bit transparent that I do go regularly, like every 2 weeks. Sometimes I skip and go once a month, but I started going when I did kind of have a crisis situation and went weekly, and then developed a relationship with this counselor or therapist and end up talking about different things. I went for one reason. Now sometimes we talk about work, sometimes we talk about family, sometimes we talk about fear for the future. You can keep going as long as you want to. A lot of times they're not going to fire you. You're the one who says I think I'm ready to see how it goes. And then it's up to you if it would be useful to you to still have that person, that objective person who knows you, knows your history, to check in with about new challenges, or if you think you can go it alone. And so there's no right or wrong answer to that if you go for a reason and then want to keep going because it just helps you handle your stressful, full 21st century life.
Definitely. And on the other side of that, MaryBeth, I have been fired by a therapist. She was just, we had worked through a lot of things and she was like, well, I don't think you need me anymore. And I was like, well, thank you. I don't want to pay if I don't need anything, but it's somebody that I know that I can always go back to, and still do. If I do need something else. So that's always great. And, it's also important to realize that it is a relationship, just like a doctor, is a relationship. And if you find a therapist and you're not really, you feel like you don't align, you feel like you don't click after a couple sessions, it's okay to find somebody else. So, they're not going to be hurt. They, in fact, want that. They should want you to, find somebody that works best for you. So join us in July. This is the first time I think we've ran the whole time, but thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Yes. So MaryBeth just put the link in the chat for our survey link. So please put the information in the survey if you want to sign up to be able to get some prizes in that last box where it talks about some things that we could do better. Just put your name and your email address and we can put that in there. We will be taking June off for the summer. So we won't see our faces, but hopefully you'll see the sunshine, and that's even better. So we will be talking in July. It won't be the third Thursday that month. It'll be the second, but it'll be July 15th. And it'll be what is in your food. So MaryBeth's going to take us through some awesome stuff on ingredients, food labels, and more things like that. So thank you so much. Please let us know if you've got any questions. We'll be here for just a little bit. But thank you all.
Thanks for coming. I know it was weird to take the whole time, but
it's weird.
There's just a lot to share.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, Alvernette.
Bye, Miss Evernette. See you later.
Bye.